everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is me, it is Nate. Nate, have you managed to beat back the slugs yet? Have you won
No,
the
I have
day?
not.
Oh no.
I have actually ordered organic slug pellets because apparently there's a way of using pellets that work that aren't super toxic and don't like kill birds and shit the way that the old ones used to. So I'm waiting on those to arrive. I'm hotly anticipating the arrival of those things, and then maybe. The weird thing is that my one basil plant that was really doing poorly has actually recovered decently, whereas the other one that was doing great, unfortunately, got eaten to shit by slugs and snails. So I do hope that we've got like about the next 10 days, it's actually going to be pretty warm. I'm hoping that if the slug pellets arrive soon, I get that shit, I get rid of the haters basically. Then in that period of like warm weather, we've already gotten a decent amount of rain. We should actually like recover pretty decently, and those two will hopefully thrive. I also bought hilariously from the grocery store. I bought a live cilantro plant, and of course, it came in a box wrapped up and like looking good to go. And as soon as I took off like the plastic cone of wrapping kind of around it, all the plant just fucking collapsed.
Ugh.
Like it had a hangover. Like it's completely flopped down. And I don't know if it's just permanently fucked already or if it's going to recover, and that's just the shock of it being moved and so on and so forth. But I can't tell if it's overwatered or underwatered. I think it's under-fertilized, and it probably was like being propagated in a greenhouse, and once it's taken out of those conditions, it's just not, I don't know, it's not set up to thrive in reality. So we'll see. It's the conservative college student intellectual of plants. It's the Bari Weiss of plants, if you will. So we will see. Maybe Andrew Sullivan and David French will rescue my plant and give it a place to thrive.
We ordered a lot of stuff online, and unfortunately because of COVID, shipping is all fucked. So we had ordered like blueberry like pot bushes so you can grow blueberries in a pot, and strawberries that we put into our garden tower, and neither of them really seemed to survive the trip. Our cherry tree seems to be doing okay though, but it's not hard to start a garden right now, but like if you want to get anything specialized, it's difficult to get it.
Is shipping fucked in the US right now? Because I mean, in the UK it was, in terms of like there was a huge mass shift to everyone ordering everything, and so for the first month or so it was pretty bad, but it has basically gone back to normal, aside from like some small vendors who haven't really been able to catch up yet.
Yeah, and that is when we ordered these, it was early on. It was way earlier in the thing before everything kind of unfucked itself. Although I have been noticing our mail USPS is kind of slowing down. I don't think we even got a mail delivery yesterday.
Oh, there's a reason for that. I don't know if you've heard that, but there's a new Postmaster General who's set out to fuck the Postal Service as much as possible.
Oh, I'm well aware. Yeah, I was reading that yesterday. There's and FedEx. I was looking at it as like, well, if USPS collapses on me, how do I do shipping? And UPS is like, yeah, we don't guarantee that we're going to pick up or deliver anywhere. And FedEx is kind of the same. So it's like, why are you gonna like collapse the one thing that lets me send patches all over the place? But because they don't want you to vote by mail and stuff, so it's all fucked.
I recall also that no joke, when I was in Afghanistan, I had the option of mailing back a Foot Locker like through the Postal Service. But they had opened up if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like a DHL and FedEx little depot kiosk on Fob Sharana in like the last month that I was there. So, seeing there was always a line at the post office, I was like, oh, I'll go see how much it's going to cost me to send this box by DHL, right? So I went down there with my Foot Locker. Now, it was like $75 to send it by the Postal Service. DHL, I'm not joking, it was going to cost $1,300 to send it to my office in Fort Richardson, Alaska. And that was like my first way of like, oh, I see. Not all delivery services are created equal. Then the post office is like the part of the US government that Americans like the most. So go figure that like these fucking ghouls, and to be fair, a lot of the stage for this was set by Democrats in the last 20 years. have basically made it their mission to destroy the thing that Americans like the most in terms of like what touches them from the government. Because obviously the big thing that touches Americans from the government is the fucking cops, and nobody likes that except for like your uncle on Facebook.
Right. I wish that I could like explain to people how important the postal service is and like how incredible it is. Like, look, I can write a letter and put it in an envelope, and like a stamp now costs 50 cents, but I can send it. Like, I've sent stuff to Alaska, I've sent stuff to Hawaii, and like even sending stuff to Germany. Like, we had a whole bunch of orders come in from Germany over the last like 2 weeks. And even the post, you know, it's still not super expensive. It's like $7, but that's not bad. Like, that's better than anybody else is going to offer me. And it's
for sure.
And it's like,
I think about that too. Like, you can send a letter with a first class stamp to like the Northern Marianas Islands or American Samoa, which, if I'm not mistaken, American Samoa is literally both in the Eastern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. Like, it's just insane. It's the closest city to American Samoa, or like city of, let's say, 1 million people, is Auckland, New Zealand. Like, that's insane. And yeah, it's the same price as sending it, like, you know, me sending a letter from Bedford to my parents' home to Indianapolis.
Yeah, and you know, people don't use the post office as much, right? You order things and you get the free shipping from Target or Amazon or whatever. So nobody ever thinks about the postal service being the thing. But it's like the postal service, when
they're the ones doing the last mile deliveries for Amazon and all those places. Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, I have UPS and I have FedEx and I have like when I go running in the middle of the day, like if I take a lunchtime run, I see Amazon and UPS and FedEx like all over the place, you know, dropping stuff off. But also, yeah, my friendly neighborhood mail carrier, she drops stuff like that off for us all the time. And because it's not profitable, right? It's not profitable, but the post office is like, that's cool. We're gonna have our money regardless. But nope, not anymore. So like all that stuff's gonna go away. Like and I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch something like to build the store and be like, cool, this is very easy, and it's not, you know, breaking my bank to do this, and I can do this. I can send these things out without it being too much of a hassle, and just to be like, no, we're just going to, slowly chip away at that. And you're right. This isn't, like, oh, in the last 6 months of Trump administration, like it's been going on for decades, because, capitalism can't stand to see a public good, if the interstates weren't already built, they would never be built. There's just absolutely no way in 2020 we would build an interstate system. Same way we're not going to build a halfway decent train system across the United States. It's just there's no money in it. There's no reason for it because nobody's going to make a profit. Why would we just spend the time on it? Sure, it might improve your lives, but fucking what do I care if you can go to Kansas City, in an hour?
I don't know if you recall this, but it was a very telling moment for me when Mike Pompeo, I think, it was Rex Tillerson was appointed Secretary of State, like hilarious mask off moment. Like, let's make the fucking Exxon CEO be the Secretary of State for America. Like, yes, that is very telling of what America's government's priorities abroad are. But I remember Tom Cotton, friend of the show, personal fan, said, he'll be a great pick for Secretary of State because he has a long career delivering value to shareholders. And it's just like, what the fuck does that have to do with American diplomacy? But that's the thing, though. That's what matters. It's delivering value to shareholders. Like, people in America are being told, die of COVID and fucking have your children become passive carriers of the virus. Like, die en masse with zero support in any capacity because your role is to be human capital and deliver value to shareholders. And it's just, what gets me is I wish more people were angry at it and were willing to say, hey, this is fucking absurd. But, to be honest, I was rereading last night when I couldn't really sleep super well. I was reading, there was a review of the HBO series Chernobyl, written by Masha Gessen at the New Yorker. And she, if I'm not mistaken, was born in the Soviet Union and she emigrated to the United States as a child or, as an adolescent. And she was talking about some of the things the show got right and a lot of the things that the show got wrong. And one of the things she pointed out was there were all these notions in the show that were sort of like written as though it was dealing with the Soviet Union in the 1930s. Like, the point she made was there was this idea of a lot of, that a senior party member could just throw a guy out of a helicopter or threaten to throw a guy out of a helicopter. She's like, after the 1930s, there weren't really summary executions dictated by one person. It was a different system, but the whole point was that they didn't have to threaten people with summary execution because the defining characteristic of being a Soviet citizen was resignation, just like accepting that shit was fucked and that's just the way things were. And so this idea that there was this secret pushback, that they could find like secret scientific reports that, proved that all these things were set up to fail. It's like those reports didn't exist because no one would have written them, because the whole point here was that being resigned to your fate was just the way that you lived. And I realize that that's a very Soviet emigre sort of take, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's also like, how is that any different than America? Like, how is that any different than America? Like, being resigned to your fate is the defining characteristic of being an American, it seems, as well.
Right. You hear a lot about the American dream, and you can be anything that you want. But when I was walking the dog today, I was thinking about just my local alderman. My local alderman, after we moved, the one we moved away from was fine. The one we moved to kind of sucks. She's an older lady. She's like for the privatization of the airport. There's a lot of local politics that I don't, just like, well, I don't like that. So I thought, like, I don't know, would I want to run, for alderman? Is this something that I think I could do? And do I think I could do it better? And then I thought, like, I've talked to so many people who are politicians, and like the time, the money that you need, the effort, the fact that you have to like just give up chunks of your life. And this isn't even just to be an elected official. This is to run to be an elected official, is ridiculous. And
yeah, somebody that I know was pointing out the fact that like the United States basically locks in the two-party system in a way that's so incredibly restrictive and so like ridiculously expensive that it's basically there's no point in trying to do anything outside of the party, and the party is also a closed shop.
Yeah, and so like that resignation comes from, it's like, when Hillary Clinton told somebody like, "Oh, you're mad at me, go run for something." It's like, fucking how? Like, it's not like you can just, it's a $50 filing fee, sure, but like if you want to have any sort of like actual chance, you have to, get donors, you have to get people to volunteer.
You have to be able to be independently wealthy, or at least able to do this as a full-time job. And how many people can do that, based on the average American's earnings and the average American's savings?
If you go back to like probably a year and a half, 2 years ago or so, I interviewed a local progressive politician, Mark Osmak. Mark is a veteran officer, and he ran for representative, not in the city but in the county. And when I was like, "So how did you do this?" And he's like, "Well, I got back from Iraq or Afghanistan. I can't remember where he was, but he had a shitload of money saved up because he wasn't spending it over there." And so he's like, "Well, I'll just run, I'll run for office because I don't have to have a job right now. I can have this time." Just like, man, I don't have time.
I mean, if you have single captain pay or something like that from a deployment, and you have 60, 70, 80 grand in cash, yes, that puts you in a great spot. That's not the typical American's experience.
No. I mean, a broke person will never be president. Like, that's just never how it's always going to be somebody who is overly educated, who comes from, it not necessarily comes from money, but like has wealth backing them already. And that's the only thing, your average, anybody can become president. No, they can't. And I think that's like the lesson that, I tell my daughters, like, you can be anything that you want, because you're smart and because you have a lot of drive, but also at the same time, I want to just be like, you can be anything that you want, but there are some things that you shouldn't be. Like, she's 5, so of course she's, she loves the fact that I'm in the Army, and I'm not, squashing those dreams right now because she's 5. She doesn't understand, war and death and, all that. All the things that come with being in the United States Army. But also it's just like, you got to kind of steer away from that. And I don't know, like there is that resignation. What exactly am I supposed to do? And I think that's why everybody goes and protests still happening. Police still being violent. protests are still going out and pushing back against stuff. St. Louis is still trying to get Lyda Crewson to resign. And that's the only power that we have, So when people when somebody gets mad at you and it's like, how can you go protest? And, I can't believe they're being so violent. It's like, we have no other voice. There is no election that we can do. I don't have a choice in who I can vote for president and have a fighting chance. Sure, I can vote Green Party. I can go libertarian, whatever. But when it comes down to, I've got old rich racist Trump or old rich racist Joe Biden. Slightly less racist, probably. Slightly less, sexually assaulty, yes, but still there. And those are our problems. And then, the go vote thing doesn't work because who am I going to vote for? That's going to, nobody except Bernie Sanders was talking about the Postal Service. So, who am I? Who do I go vote for to say, hey, we should save this, 100+ year institution that is one of the greatest things that a country can create. But also, let's go and do more of that. Let's do that with healthcare. Let's do that with housing. And instead, I just have two old people who are just like, well, my shareholders want this, and my shareholders want that, and the people holding my leash want these things. Because that's all a politician is, man. You gotta. Tom Cotton said, you've got shareholders to worry about, and your shareholders are the people who are giving you money. And there it is. And unfortunately, I don't have the gravitas or the personality to attract a lot of small dollar donors like Bernie Sanders does. I can only sit here and be grumpy on a podcast, I guess.
Yeah, but it could be worse, Francis. You could be the one person, the one credulous moron in the world who thinks that over the course of almost 20 years, we've managed to set up a fighting force in Afghanistan that can hold its own. Now, don't get me wrong, the Afghans deal with a lot of shit and they're incredibly brave and they work incredibly hard. But the U.S. military, as we know, is basically a vehicle by which defense contractors and defense companies make a lot of money. So, as you know, one of the problems that has existed for a very long time with regard to the military training in Afghanistan is the ability to keep track of stuff that gets sent there, gear, vehicles, etc., weapons that get, we'll say, donated, although the government pays for them. And the problem that we have found is apparently, despite the whatever systems in place, it still doesn't work to keep track of gear. Now, why is that? Well, it turns out the system they put in place requires electricity and internet access.
This is such an American solution too. It's just this works for us, so it should probably work for you guys too. And it very much rings of that, you want to grab somebody by the lapels and we've been here for 20 years. How have you not figured this shit out? How have you not figured out there's not internet in the mountains, or if there is, it's spotty at best. And as you said, the Afghan National Army and the Afghan police, I'm sure they're doing their best, but they're not great. They weren't great when I was there. They weren't great when you were there. I'm sure they're still not all that great. If they were, we wouldn't be in Afghanistan anymore. We would have left because we would have said, hey, look, they've got it. We've trained them. We gave them weapons. We gave them our old MRAPs that we don't want anymore. They're doing proper PMCS on everything. They're doing maintenance on their weapons. Hooray, we did it. We built a nation. Of course, none of that is going to be happening. And so now we have this system, which the article does say, look, things have gotten better. The system does help. But also, a lot of your outposts just don't have these systems. This doesn't have internet, doesn't have electricity. How are you going to use a computer-based system when you don't have these things? Smartphones aren't ubiquitous in Afghanistan. It's just an insane thing that when I was reading it, as that when you're why would you do this? Why is this a thing that you think that would work? And then, but also just not being surprised by it, just knowing that this is how we operate, that we put in a system because we say we think that this will work, and because it works for us, it'll work for you. All you have to do is do these things that we do. But they're not going to do those things we do. Either they're just not going to, because fuck you, or they're not going to because they can't. And that's what we come down to.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to read some of this from the piece from Task and Purpose that you sent to me earlier, Francis. Basically, I mean, and in the grand scheme of things, this is a small amount of money, but it's obviously it's a waste. It's money that could do things anywhere else, but it's not a big billions, trillions figure. It's small change in terms of military waste in the 20 years long attempt to stop up an active volcano by dumping cash into it. The U.S. military has spent $14.4 million on an internet-based gear and vehicle accountability system for Afghan troops and police that is effectively useless for many Afghan units which don't have access to the internet or electricity, according to the Defense Department's Inspector General's office. Afghan security forces simply are not using the system at nearly half of their local weapons and vehicle storage depots because conditions are just too austere for it to work, a recent DoD IG audit found. Since August 2016, the Combined Security Transition Command Afghanistan, CSTICA, the command tasked with training and equipping Afghan troops and police, has awarded 5 contracts so that the Afghan security forces can use the Core Inventory Management System, Core IMS, for gear and vehicle accountability. Blah, 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 blah. Apparently it's good if it works, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. But Afghan security forces do not use the system at 78 of its 191 or 41% of their local weapons and vehicle storage sites because CSTICA did not fully consider the levels of difficulty or challenges the operational command would have on the implementation of Core IMS, the Core report found, namely a lack of electricity or internet connectivity. So, effectively, here's the thing that they say works. However, they didn't think that nearly half of the places where it would be in place don't have power or internet. In the meantime, basically it says, the closing paragraph, 2016 analysis found the Pentagon has funneled some 1.45 million firearms to various security forces in Afghanistan and Iraq since the start of the global war on terror. It's not known how many of those ended up in local weapons armories and how many have simply gone missing since.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine, though.
This is what I know you said that it's small money, $14 million for an Excel spreadsheet that's just fancy. But also, it's what are we missing? What's lost? We already know that like pallets of cash just went missing in Iraq with a whole lot of shrugged shoulders. Like I don't fucking know. We've seen how the Air Force has to blow up our own Humvees because they've been taken off of the Iraqi police or the Afghan National Police. We're having a system that tracks all of this stuff is great. I'm sure that it's absolutely it is absolutely necessary. We do need to have tracking of these sensitive items, but like, is there any punishment for losing anything? Like, or all of these things just being sold off for extra money to fill up the gas tank? It's just a failure all across the board. And again,
it's something that I thought about, and I've talked about this before. And when you and I recently did an interview with Brock Wilbur, we talked about this. That I feel that the price tag here isn't really my concern in the sense that, okay, I don't want to look at it and dismiss it. I think the bigger picture here is obviously it's the stupidity, the arrogance, and the general lack of awareness of reality that causes these sorts of things to happen when, people in charge just don't consider that Afghanistan, one of the poorest countries on earth, might be at a position of difficulty to implement an internet-based solution. But I think the bigger picture here is, in the wider context of what is going on in America and the world, you look at some shareholder value asshole trying to privatize and destroy the U.S. Postal Service as, if the polling is correct, as a last gasp of Trump fuckery. You have the cops, a friend of the show Trash Future, a personal friend of mine, Devin, I will pull up the tweet because it's hilarious. They came up with the calculations for the ratio of, let's say, rent to candles in the drill tweet, and then determined what the ratio of police to other things are in American city budgets. And as Devin has said in their tweet, many cities actually have a more egregious budget breakdown than Drill's candles tweet. If you take the highest to second highest ratio, they are as follows. Drill's 9-2 candles to rent. Columbus, Ohio is 8-1 police recreation. But Baltimore is 255-22 police to recreation. Los Angeles is 620-7 police to transport. So the joke about please help me, my family is starving is actually an understatement of how much American cities and states and the federal government spend on cops and the military versus things that could make people's lives work. And I think the bigger picture here is not to be like a Grover Norquist asshole about let's not pay taxes. That's not the point. That's the absolute opposite of my point. But my point is Americans pay pretty high taxes. Like, it's certainly not low tax compared to a place like, neoliberal place like fucking Hong Kong. Americans pay pretty high taxes.
Yeah, we pay 40%,
dog
man.
shit for it.
Yeah.
We get absolute dog shit for it. We get basically nothing. I mean, I was having to explain because I have to file taxes here in the UK for, I live here, I have my earnings, I have a company that I run, and I have, to go through with an accountant to do corporate taxes as well as personal income taxes. And, my parents have asked me like, oh, why would you want to start a business in Britain? Taxes are so high. It's like, taxes are about the same as they were in New York City. I mean, they might be less than if I was living in Texas, but I don't want to fucking live in Texas. But and Britain is not exactly the fucking best example of, a society where you get what you pay for in taxes. Because, I mean, there's just nakedly open corruption. Tax avoidance is basically legal if you're rich enough. There's a whole industry around offshoring money that should have gone to taxes. So, you go put it in the fucking Cayman Islands or whatever, in Bermuda or whatever. Like, that's completely nakedly open. And yet we get way more than Americans do. And I had to explain to the accountant who's like, why are we having to prepare, because like the tax year in Britain is different than it is in America. It's not the calendar year. It runs April to April here. And I was like, oh no, I need a tax statement as well for, income and earnings for the full calendar year. And I was accountants, the person at the firm was like, why? And I basically pointed out like, well, regardless of where you are in the world, if you're an American citizen, even if all of your income is, paid in full through a foreign entity, and you work for a foreign company or whatever, you still have to file taxes. And if you earn above, I think it's $135,000 per person in your family, or like I think it's more than that if it's a married filing jointly, you have to pay taxes on any income above that amount. Now, obviously, the way most Americans get away with this is that, it's done through like an LLC or whatever, and it's not individual taxes and so on and so forth. If you're rich enough, you can avoid it. But yes, Americans, I think, unlike pretty much any other country on earth, you have to file the inordinately complicated and basically impossible to decode, at the behest of fucking TurboTax system, even if you don't live in America and you don't earn money in America. And when you try to explain that to people who aren't American, especially if they're from the snooty countries that are founded on fucking colonialism and racism, like, Western and Northern Europe, they're always completely blown away by the fact that why do Americans put up with this shit? And that's, I think, the bigger picture that you and I are trying to connect here, that we can look at this as an example specifically about Afghanistan. But you're literally looking at a system that is almost 50% ineffective by design. And that's the kind of shit they're coming out as like new and hot and fucking sexy and completely, attuned to past failures. And that's the best they can come up with, for $14.5 million. And that's just that is just in miniature the story of the entirety of nearly 20 years of this fucking complete waste that has happened in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere in the world.
Well, it's not a waste if you're a person who gets to hold the bag at the end.
Well, exactly, but that's the thing is we have an economy that's oriented entirely around the private defense industry and cops, and that's it. And property developers, to some extent, who either become president or make money on the places that are safeguarded by cops.
Yep.
And I just don't understand why there is this sense of utter resignation, like that's just the way it is. In a way, I understand why people get more emotionally invested in fantasy shit like QAnon and the idea that, ancient aliens, and secret underground pedophile bunkers are communicating in code in order to establish Christian supremacy via the perfect vehicle of Donald Trump, who is jacked as hell and really smart and incredibly devious and not just the dumbest man to ever exist. Like, I understand why people get invested in that myth making, because in a way it's easier to accept something, involving fourth dimensional travel and fucking like ancient alien ruins than it is to accept that, and to use an expression that I absolutely 100% understand the negative implications of this expression. I understand the way that it was used. I understand the way that it's in the grand scheme of things is a very ugly thing. But we are the most cucked group of people on the planet.
It is, and the people who are anti-mask and the people who are QAnon, I really feel like a lot of that is just because QAnon is mostly boomers. It's mostly just like older people who told me don't believe everything you read on the internet, and then just decided to believe everything that they read on the internet. And it's because you don't have, what other power do you have? You have no power in this country. Like, as a normal person who, for every person who says that they're a proud capitalist, you're not if you don't actually own any capital. Like, the only thing that you have in this system, in this society of ours, the only thing that you're born with, is your hands. And that's the only thing that you have. You can sell your labor. Now, of course, if you're born into a rich family, if you're born a Trump, if you're born a Rockefeller, anything like that, obviously
if you're Tucker Carlson and you inherit the Swanson fortune from Swanson Frozen Foods.
Fucking hungry man over here. Yeah, if you're born, you can get capital. You can certainly build capital. But it's, for the most part, it's not accessible to the vast majority of Americans, especially people who are born into families without resources. Even if you come up and you're smart, you go, you get a scholarship to Harvard or whatever, you will always be, you're always going to be $5 short, basically.
There's a guy who's a very famous trader in America, and like his dad owned a tailoring business on Long Island, but it was absolutely like a middle class family. And he grew up, was really just like fixated on stocks and stock picking. He was really good at it in the way that like he was also a really good poker player. And because of the trajectory of the financialization of the American economy between the 70s, when he entered the workforce working on Wall Street in like a trading shop, and the current day, he was able to amass enough of a fortune, we're talking like $25 million by the early 90s, and then ride the wave of deregulation running a hedge fund to the point where he's now worth something like 20 or 30 billion dollars. But the thing about that is that that's a story of a person who was born with the resources that got him in a position to, be wealthy enough, or at least well off his middle class sense enough to go to the University of Pennsylvania as an undergrad, which is an Ivy League school, in the 70s when it wasn't as expensive. And then over the course of the complete retooling of the American economy in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, he happened to have the skill set and the personal capital to be able to take the world for a ride, if you will. And that's not a story of like, Horatio Alger novels where like I found an apple and I sold it and bought more apples, and then by the end of the book I'm a fucking millionaire. That's not that. That is winning the generational lottery, having a particularly lucrative skill that basically amounts to nothing but genteel gambling, and all of the stars aligning in terms of doors opening to allow people to just amass and retain grotesque profits.
Right. Like, it's not a skill. This is not a skill that this person has. Like, it's gambling. He got lucky gambling, and then, as you said, road deregulation.
Yeah. He was really good at gambling, and the entirety of the world economy retooled itself to be focused on gambling and to facilitate more gambling and to make everything that was supposed to be stable in the social like safety net, from pensions to state-owned enterprises, instead have the entirety of their operations routed through a roulette wheel. Yep, it's the world. I guess America itself was built to be the playground for a very, very small, select group of people. And I'm going to go ahead and guess that none of the people on or listening to this podcast are a part of it. What we have is only our labor to sell, and that's fucked, man. Like, capitalism is just such a shitty situation in which you're born into a world where you have to like immediately fight for resources, or if resources aren't available to you, some people have more than others. They're born into, as we said, being born a Trump or a Rockefeller versus being born, lower class or in poverty. And it's just
infuriating sometimes. And yeah, that's the thing. And we are, as you said, such a cucked society that you're going to have people who will make those arguments. It's just like, well, you can grow up to do anything. It's like, I need to explain to you like hunger on the development of a child, due to poverty, and like those kids might not grow up to be all that they can be because their brains didn't develop well enough, because they weren't given food when they were 7, 8, 9 years old, because they just didn't have it. Like it's not as simple as a just all you have to do is follow your dreams. I mean, hell, the Trump administration, who famously said we can't give up the coal industry because we can't retrain all of those coal miners to go do something else. Their big thing is like, oh, why don't you just go get another job doing something else? And there's no jobs. There's nothing to do. Like, my wife works in the travel industry, which is absolutely rat fucked at the moment. Like, she won't be making any money conceivably until next year. She doesn't get paid on travel until people actually travel. And what's she going to do? Go, like, the other options are she can go work at a grocery store, which, would put her at risk of COVID. Or what? I was looking at the website. Was she going to go like build fucking wind turbines? What is going on here? And again, it is just that whole, it's for me, not for the rest of you. When it comes to America, the attitude is that this is not for the rest of you. This is for us up here at the top, and it's always going to be for us up here at the top. We're going to do a tax cut that's going to benefit us up here at the top, and the rest of you, I don't know, just go get another job. Why don't you go back to community college? It's like, bitch, 32% of Americans didn't make their July, housing payments. What the fuck is community college going to do for anybody? And again, it's just, it is a beaten down attitude, and an attitude of, it's not my fault, it's your fault that you're not where you're at. And these are the really infuriating arguments, because it's like, we should be on the same side. Guy who owns a bar and grill out in Festus, Missouri, we're on the same side here. We both want these things to stop. If everybody would wear a fucking mask, we could drive this into the ground in 2 months. But instead, you're going to yell at me. You're going to yell at anybody else who's around. You're going to demand to open up your shit, and then more people are going to die, and things are just not going to get better. Like, we could have fixed it, but we didn't, because we're led by stupid people, and collectively America is just pretty dumb. And that's just the reality you find yourself in. And yeah, like, it is a resignation. COVID unemployment runs out at the end of this month, and my wife and I will have to tighten our belts. A lot of people will have to tighten our belts. We're in a better situation than many people, but it's certainly it's looking down a scary barrel right now, and it's a barrel that a lot of other people are already in and staring down and having to deal with, and we just don't have anybody who gives a fuck, because if you don't have a job, you're not generating capital, so get the fuck out of here. Go get a job. If you can't do that, I guess we'll just, toss your body in the dumpster once you starve to death. And that is the American dream right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's also crazy to me, because there is absolutely this tendency amongst Americans to not believe that anywhere else in the world could be any better at doing anything than us. And sometimes those kind of tensions emerge when you have populations of Americans coming into contact with populations of other nationalities. And specifically, Francis, you found a story that's sad, but also very telling, about the U.S. military troops stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and the difference between the Japanese response to COVID-19 versus the U.S. military's, and thereby the U.S. government's. The headline of the story is, Japan is shocked and furious at the U.S. after a major coronavirus outbreak at 2 Marine bases in Okinawa, and says the U.S. is not taking the virus seriously. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs. Japanese authorities are demanding answers from the U.S. after a large-scale coronavirus outbreak among Marines stationed in the country's southern prefecture of Okinawa. 61 Marines have been infected with the virus in recent days, according to the Guardian newspaper, spread across 2 bases in the archipelago, which has been long a U.S. military stronghold in the Eastern Pacific. 38 of the reported cases are at Futenma Marine Air Station. Another 23 occurred at Camp Hansen, a base that is home to around 6,000 U.S. Marines. Quote, "It is extremely regrettable that the infections are rapidly spreading among U.S. personnel when we Okinawans are doing our utmost to contain the infections," unquote. Okinawa's governor, Denny Tamaki, said at a press conference, according to The Guardian. "Okinawans are shocked by what we were told," he added. "We now have strong doubts the U.S. military has taken adequate disease prevention measures." Tamaki is half American, being born to a father in the U.S. military and Japanese mother. He's the first American Asian to take a seat in the Japanese House of Representatives. It was previously unknown how many U.S. service personnel had contracted COVID-19, but the figures were released publicly after significant pressure on U.S. authorities by Tamaki, the Associated Press has said. Previously, the U.S. Marine Corps had vaguely referred to 2 localized clusters, in quotes, of infections without giving a precise number of cases. After months with no confirmed COVID-19 infections in Okinawa, this week the Marine Corps experienced 2 localized clusters of individuals who tested positive for the virus, a post on the official Marine Corps Installation Pacific Facebook page said. All those infected are in isolation, the page added. Okinawa Prefecture has reported 145 cases of the virus with 7 deaths, according to Japanese news outlet Nippon. News of the outbreak among Marines comes as back home the U.S. battles record or near record numbers of new cases of the virus virtually every day and remains the pandemic's global center. The U.S. reported more than 66,000 new cases of the virus on Saturday, the biggest single-day increase ever, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So basically, they haven't been reporting it accurately. So the Okinawan government, which is doing the same of what the Japanese government is doing, which is to say they are being extremely stringent about this, now has been told, oh, by the way, we didn't tell you, but there's like 60-odd cases.
Yeah, and Okinawa, Okinawa, Japan is a cluster of islands that's pretty far away from the mainland. But we have a lot of military bases there. And, when it's an island, it's fairly easy to keep yourself isolated because it's harder for, infected people to get there. Except if, the infected people happen to be 26,000 Marines that we have stationed there. And they have every right to be just absolutely pissed off at us. Everybody does. I mean, I can't imagine, being a country like in Germany. How are the soldiers at, Dusseldorf or Frankfurt or any of these places, how are they dealing with it? And is Germany, putting up with our bullshit? We're going to get expelled from Japan because we're virus carriers at this point. I'm surprised anybody lets us in anywhere. And a lot of places don't. There's only like 20-ish countries that are allowing Americans in. Many of them require an immediate 2-week quarantine when you get there. So, it's surprising. And I know that the Okinawans already don't like American service members because we're loud and we're stupid and we get drunk and we do stupid, loud, drunk things. This is not going to improve anything. It's not going to improve our relations with the Japanese, with the local Okinawans. It's, when you see how fucking clown shoes American responses are to things like this, and then you realize we're in 140 countries, we're going to become nationalists by default because everybody's just going to say, no, you guys got to go home. I can't have you over here coughing on stuff. We have shit under control. And then you go out and you run around, you go drinking, you go whoring, and then all of a sudden we have a cluster outbreak.
I mean, it is really weird to me that the American response to the thing that would be notionally like a national crisis, that all the fucking assholes were telling us, oh, well, America could pull together if we could just all get on board, as though it's sort of in Britain, there's this constant invocation of the Dunkirk spirit, which is hilarious in its own right when you consider that Dunkirk was a near disaster that was only averted because a bunch of civilian fishermen came and saved their asses. But without that, let's just talk about in America, this idea of sort of invoking a kind of a sense of unity that never existed, and the idea that in the face of catastrophe or disaster or a huge threat, Americans would pull together. And to me, I think it's very strange but it's also very telling that the way that this has unfolded is we have basically turned on the money printer to only bail out businesses so they can do stock buybacks and CEO compensation. The stock market's at an all-time high because businesses know that they basically won't be allowed to go bankrupt because the Federal Reserve will just bail them out. Americans are about to get kicked off expanded unemployment insurance, which looks as though it's going to be a complete disaster. Wave upon wave of eviction is happening, and it's going to continue to happen even as the cases are skyrocketing, worse than anywhere else in the world, to include Brazil, a place that is massively dysfunctional and run by a viral right-wing boomer Facebook post in person. America's doing worse than that. And amid all of this disaster, amid all of this nightmare, the response from a solid 40% of America and basically 70 to 80% of elected representatives who are Republicans has been breathing is for libs. If you survive the virus, it makes you gay. Or the virus doesn't exist, or this is just a hoax, or whatever.
Or it's not going to kill you. I mean, sure, it might give you permanent lung, brain, or heart damage, but only 1% of people die. But also, you can't afford to quarantine in place, and nobody can afford to be in a hospital for 3, 4, 5 weeks on a ventilator trying to, survive. So it's, it's great. We even if you get sick, you're still fucked. Just because, and you know what? It's your fault that you got sick, but also don't wear a mask because masks are for pussies.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I guess my takeaway from that is that strikes me as a truly authentically American response. But go figure, so many of the people who have sold this fiction that there's this moment just waiting over the horizon, this moment of a crisis bringing about American togetherness, when the fact of the matter is, we as a country are completely insane, and we are fixated on various refracted versions of this individuality and rugged individualism and, self-made millionaire mythology. And that has led to a situation in which, Florida's like, fuck it, back to normal. We're opening up Disney World when they are the hardest hit state in America. And, boomers are having COVID parties because they don't believe it exists. They just think it's nonsense from the libs.
Yeah, we're gonna need every day. We're gonna need 10 stories of people saying, "I thought it wasn't real, and then I got it, and then I died," or "Then I got it, and my lungs had to be transplanted or something." It's absolutely ridiculous, and you see that all the time. You see the "Oh, I didn't think it was that bad until I caught it because I was out running around without a mask doing stupid shit." And I wear a mask. My wife wears a mask. The kid wears a mask. We manage our risk as we do, but if we're going out, we do it as sparingly, and we do it without a mask, or we do it with a mask. But even with mask ordinance, we'll go to the grocery store and there'll be plenty of people without a mask. And honestly, Nate, I'm thinking about finding myself a 6-foot stick, and if you're not wearing a mask, I'm gonna poke you and be like, "You need to be over there," because if you're not gonna, I have to assume, if you're not wearing a mask, that you are infected, that you are, I have to assume you're infected because you're stupid, because you're not wearing a mask. So I have to assume that you go out without a mask all the time. And I have to also assume that if you get near me, you're going to kill me. And now it just comes down to self-defense. I will castle law the shit out of you with my stick if you cough near me, or if you get too close to me, because what else am I supposed to do? How else am I supposed to keep myself safe if you're not going to do the bare fucking minimum? Oh, I don't know, man.
Well, you know what? It's all bad. We know this. And I feel like the people there are some people who can't wear masks, and I get that. But most of us can. The overwhelming majority of us can. And rather than making grandiose statements about, put on masks, you assholes, and that kind of stuff, I think the point is everyone should. People who can't because of medical reasons, I understand. Most Americans are whiny babies in general, so I don't necessarily want to give people who are faking it an out, but I understand that some people legitimately can't. However, most people can. If you can, do your part, do it. And the Facebook uncle shit, I don't know if there's really a solution to that, because you've just we are so out of control with the brain melting powers of right-wing disinformation that I just don't know if there's a way to detoxify those people. I mean, there's legitimately organizations out there that do like cult deprogramming for people who get hooked on QAnon because it is that severe. And I would like to put forth the argument that Boomer Facebook is just a couple degrees removed from that, that it's just a milder strain of the same problem. So with that in mind, I genuinely think the best thing people can do is to be as, if not paranoid, certainly as cautious as possible and, as scrupulous as possible about following best practices, if you will, with regard to mask wearing and hand washing and gloves if you can, and no unnecessary social stuff and things along those lines. And, it's a nightmare, but there is a way out of it. And the way out of it is for the government to fucking pay people to stay home. And I don't know. We're in a moment and no one seems willing to recognize that. And I can only hope that folks show up with their physical presence to let folks know that they're not letting the courts evict people, and they're not letting politicians have a normal life.
That's how they did it during the Depression, man. Like farmers were about to get evicted and they all took their guns and waved it at politicians until they weren't getting evicted anymore. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you what worked in the past.
And also I'm saying this with guns too, is that like, okay, the issue that you have with that too is that there are situations in which if you try that, then that's basically giving the cops carte blanche to go Fallujah on you. And so I think the operative term here is sort of a critical mass of people. It doesn't have to be armed. Obviously, some places in the U.S. have made it very easy to carry guns anywhere you want to, and that obviously certainly sends a message, but that also invites, scrutiny from Officer Marine Todd. So I think there's something to bear in mind there. And I guess the thing I'm saying here is I really hope that people can muster, to make the politicians who refuse to do their jobs feel so uncomfortable and threatened that they realize, okay, this is not a game. This is not some shit that I can just make some glib fucking Harvard Business School statement about and then walk away with no real sweat out of my back. Like I said, maybe I'm giving you dangerous advice. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it doesn't have to be this fucked. It doesn't have to be this dysfunctional, this utterly resigned, and it doesn't have to be surrender to the worst possible outcome. And I hope that people see that. But in the interim, this week's bonus episode features us doing a dad chat that is not about politics at all. So
it's all about cooking.
It's all about cooking, yeah. So I'm going to roll some footage of that. And if you're interested, that is available on the Patreon at the $1 a month tier, the cheapest possible tier. So if you want to hear more dad chat, it's there.
I mean, I saute. Like, that's the majority of my vegetable cooking is sauteing them to put them into something else. So what's a stir fry versus, because I make my own fried rice, like just in a cast iron, but I don't feel like it's not getting hot. Like, I cook the rice first and then I add it in with all my other stuff.
My experience with it is, if you want the difference between a stir fry and stuff that's cooked in like sauteed, it's that the pan gets really hot before you put anything in. When you throw stuff in, it cooks really fast. And if you've got an adequate supply of heat for this, the way it would be done in a Chinese restaurant, or like especially old-fashioned way, where it's literally you put the pot on the opening of a big charcoal fire. The idea is that when you throw ingredients in there, meat, vegetables, whatever, it doesn't take hardly any time at all for it to return to the heat that it was at before you threw the stuff in. Like the metal and the oil stay really hot. Gotcha. And so the idea is that you get like a really, almost like a pan-seared, like flash cook on the surfaces of the meat, of the vegetables, etc. If you throw in stuff like ginger and garlic, you'd only have to cook it for maybe 15 seconds before it would be more or less done. You got to work fast doing this too. But it basically, when you cook the meat, it cooks stuff and evaporates stuff so fast that instead of having the issue, which I've had in the past, where like, say you throw in a bunch of onions and peppers and garlic or whatever into a thing, it doesn't cook fast enough. And what winds up happening is like liquid leaches out, and then you have like this liquid in the center that is almost like boiling, and that cooks it. It tastes fine. It tastes the right way, but there's just, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
way too it's too liquidy. You want that it to be so hot that that liquid evaporates, and the only way to really get it that hot is to cook it, with something like a burner, something that is almost designed for it. And subsequently, even if you could get it that hot inside the house, between ventilation and just like the potential for stuff catching on fire, it would be way too dangerous. And so you can get electric ones, but they're like super expensive and really, really like you need like a special power connection for them, which is just absurd. So my thought with this was I get an outdoor gas burner. I can do the stir frying. You can take the wok ring out and use it as a regular burner, which means if I want to make like a big pot of, say, pozole or something like that, I can do it. And then subsequently in the future, if I get all the shit that I need, like the various gear, I could ostensibly deep fry a turkey too. Because having an outdoor big fixture gas burner that you can move anywhere, I could do full safety mode, put it out on like a fire retardant blanket or something like that, and get like a big metal stock pot that you would use, for deep frying, and just go through it that way. And I know I've never deep fried a turkey before, but I remember one of my NCOs in Honduras deep fried a turkey on Thanksgiving, and I remember watching him do it. And like, it's if you just follow all the safety steps, it's really a pretty simple process. It's just there's not a lot of margin for error once you get going. And so you absolutely are not going to find deep fried turkey in the fucking United Kingdom unless you're literally like one of the U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force bases. So that's like my long-term goal, is to do horrible, suburban dad backyard cooking. But this thing that I'm getting is sort of, it's not a gas grill, because I don't need a gas grill for this. What I need is something that's specifically meant to deliver a shitload of heat, like on a burner. And I found it. I just have to, it would be really dumb for me to buy it when I don't have anywhere to store it, given this is like the rainiest fucking country on earth.
My wife and I have been kind of kicking ourselves because years ago when we were at Lowe's, we saw a fire pit. We love to have fire pits, and we don't have one at the new house yet because the last one we had was just a cheap one. I kept talking about building one, which is really easy to do, but then we moved, and new house, like, we hang out in the front yard, and there's not really room for a fire pit in the front yard. And the backyard is just, I don't know, the backyard's just kind of undeveloped. We have a nice table and umbrella out in the front and everything, so that's all nice. But there was this one fire pit that had like a grill attached to it, so it's this really nice ornate fire pit. It was deep, so it like was kind of raised up a little bit and had a deep bin or basin in it, so that you could cook either directly, like you could put a grill inside of it and cook directly like that, and do just cooking over wood fire, or it had like an arm that swung over it, so you could just like put stuff on top of it and swing it over if you wanted to do. So if you wanted something close to the heat, you could have that. If you wanted something to have more of a kiss of the heat, you could have something a little higher. And we didn't end up getting that because we don't really cook outside. We also don't really eat that much meat. So grilling, and I know you can grill vegetables and everything, but I mean at that point I'm not. I don't know. It just it seems a waste of prepping, prepping the grill and get everything ready. Just throw a bunch of like corn and bell peppers up on top of it when it can boil corn with no problem, and saute peppers or bake them or whatever.
That's legit that you guys do that. I mean, I don't have a fire pit. I mean, I don't know if Cynthia would want a fire pit or not, but I have to ask her. One thing we have the brick grill thing is kind of a standard UK backyard thing, where you can buy kits to assemble them with brick and mortar, and it's basically just like a brick stand. With the way that you build it, you effectively have, in a couple of rungs, you have a little bit of the brick exposed, like standing out. So you can then, that creates shelves where you can put like a charcoal tray, and then like another, like an actual griddle tray, and then maybe a third layer if you really need it. Weirdly, despite this being such a common thing that you can, there's like standard measurements for them and how they're constructed, that you can just buy a rack offline and it'll probably fit, because most people's grills are like, I think it's like 66 centimeters or something like that. There doesn't seem to be a standard cover, like a rain cover or something to put on top of it, which is weird. Like I said, once again, this is like an incredibly wet country. So I'm legitimately planning on going full Jamaican backyard shit and just getting some corrugated sheet metal to put as like a lid that I can use for when I'm smoking. Well, not smoking, but making jerk chicken, and you're trying to get some smoke in there as well. And the idea of having a fire pit sounds cool too. Although I don't know, I think that the houses are so close together, and people leave their windows open so much that I feel like if I did that, I'd probably get some complaints about like just the sheer volume of smoke.
Because that'll happen. You can only really do that I mean, I live in an urban area, and certainly you're close to your neighbor, but it's not, you can have a fire pit. Like, it's not gonna fuck everybody else up, but I can understand like you're in a much more cramped space.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a row, but like it's around us are all other rows and stuff, and it's just there aren't any separated freestanding houses. It's all either row houses or apartment buildings. So not as dense as like where we lived in Brooklyn, but way denser than your average, say, American suburban neighborhood by a significant margin.
Yeah, we would always have people over just to, hang out, sit in the backyard, sit around a fire pit and drink beers and bullshit. Like a fire pit's great because it's just that one, it keeps bugs away, but also, while there's lulls in the conversation, everybody can take a turn poking the fire, like, which is just such I don't know if that's a real American thing or if it's just as soon as everybody's around a fire, somebody's going to pick up a stick and start poking it. Or everybody's going to pick up a stick and start poking it in one way or another. You get to argue about it and everything. Although I will admit my wife is a better fire builder than I am. So, but she also did, before we got together, she was doing fire pit stuff with her friends for like years. And then I'm a Boy Scout, but I mean, that's 25 years ago. That's about all I got. So I can certainly cram enough newspaper in there that a fire starts like by default. But if you're like, hey, given these like survival things, no, I'm not there. Get me a lighter, please.
I went to ranger school in the wintertime, and so when we were allowed to make fires, you're damn sure we were going to make fires. And so me personally, I just learned how to do it. I mean, I knew how to do it from being a Cub Scout and I was a Boy Scout for a couple of years. Well, about a year, then we left New Mexico, and I didn't get involved in Boy Scouts in Indiana. But what I recall is just, the way you sort of build up with kindling and such and then add more stuff. So, I mean, I don't know if I could build a fire in a downpour. And I think we successfully did in Ranger School, but it was not easy.
Everybody, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. You can follow me at Army Strang. You can follow Nate at In These Deserts. Follow the podcast. You can catch our writing and see our shop on hellofawaytodie.com. And if you have any interview ideas, anything you think would be good for bonus content, you can always reach out to us, Sergeant Joker at hellofawaytodie.com. So, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving us the chance. And Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, take care.